I have finally made it to the most recently completed SpongeBob season, and I have to say, I've enjoyed season 11. 8 and 10 are about the same in terms of tone, but I just prefer more of 11's episodes. That may be a bit unfair since it's way longer, but it's impressive they could keep up with a consistently alright mark of quality throughout most of its airtime. Part of this is due to the further bumps in animation, which make for some really great looking scenes, which prove that visually, the show's still good for something. Granted, they're not always incorporated into memorable stories, but I like much of what I got here anyway. I'm Employee Emilian, and here's my top 5 best and worst SpongeBob episodes from season 11. Kicking off the worst list, number 5, Library Cards. SpongeBob's reading room had always been ample material for a whole story to itself, and they make some good puns out of book terms for the first few minutes. But things go downhill when Patrick gets smart, again, and it's really off-putting. Making it so his brain grows dangerously large just by reading all the books is just unnerving, and it leads to a pretty backwards ending where Patrick has to be dumbed down again to save him and SpongeBob. Even the featured artsy stuff with the word buildings doesn't really do it for me, since I want them gone. There's a lot to love about this one, but there's a lot more to hate. Number 4, Man Ray Returns. Well, this is the first Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy episode I've gotten to do an oral review for, but it's a right shame it has to be this one. Think about your typical plot where SpongeBob and Patrick bother Squidward to the extreme, but swap him with Man Ray and do nothing else. I'd just like to see Man Ray live out a casual vacation, but these bottom feeders mess it up for the guy, long after the action narrator gets it pointed out to him. As far as the action goes, it's got the same problem as a friendly game from Season 8. Simply destroying Squidward's house is not a joke. Where's Reflector when you need him? Number 3, Squirrel Jelly. I can't even describe how hard they screwed this one up. It should have been easy to make an episode introducing Sandy to jellyfishing. I can understand her wanting to be intense with it, but rubbing it in everyone's faces and destroying jellyfish fields in the process? Let me remind you, she's underwater in the first place for scientific studies, not whatever's going on here. I really wanted to give her a second chance in her meditation recovery and all that, but I was already worn out with her. This is what happens when they put destruction first, and it can be outright irritating in a decades-old comedy show. Number 2, Bunny Hunt. There isn't much of a story here, just a random selection of excuses for gags. They're centered around a bunny ravaging through Squidward's garden, and the joke is he's doing the absolute wrong ways trying to get him out. Then when SpongeBob enters the picture and adopts the bunny, logic, common sense, and wit just fade away. It feels like this episode doesn't have an anchored reason to be made. It doesn't have a moral, nor does it further the series in any way. It's just a bunch of zany bunny jokes you've already seen hundreds of times in cartoons. The best thing this episode did was introduce me to real sea bunnies. Number 1, in Clemen Aid. You're probably tired seeing this episode talked about now, and I am too, but I've got to offer my opinion on it. Patrick's idiocy is cranked up to unrealistic standards. Squidward's inking is already messed up, but it just gets more painful and plentiful as the episode goes on. What's not to hate? The haunted house Patrick somehow makes has some potential by itself, but other than that, In Clemen Aid just has nothing going for it. A lot of fans say it wouldn't be out of place in season 6, and I agree, but it'd still be one of the worst episodes of even that season. This episode won't traumatize you if you're any older than 8. In fact, I encourage you to check this one out just to know that SpongeBob can still make bad episodes, and they can still have a punch in their own way, unlike other long-running shows. Honestly, these 5 episodes are the only ones in this season that fully annoyed me. Even the dishonorable mentions have some pretty good lines and gags to clean up their shoddy stories. But enough of the lower end of season 11, it's got a pretty strong higher end, including these top 5 episodes. Number 5, High Sea Diving. I don't think there's an episode about trash I like more than this. It isn't really about the trash as much as how you use it, and this episode's obsessed with that. SpongeBob wants to become a high sea diver, but is blocked by a ceiling of junk that Old Man Jenkins rules over. Their battle is hilarious, but what I really love is how the debris falls down to Bikini Bottom, and the citizens use it. Already, that is a great mythology gag, given how that's part of the place's original charm, but the creativity just shows no bounds with what everyday objects they choose to make do with. This isn't just a good SpongeBob episode, it's a quintessential one. Number 4, There's a Sponge in My Soup. A story about hippies works perfectly with this new direction, so it's no surprise they managed to get a good story out of it. Mr. Krabs hating the hippies is fully justified by him being a cranky old grump, and them hanging around the Krusty Krab doing nothing. He sends SpongeBob to fish them out of the soup at a point later on, and that's when the real trip begins. There are visuals and quotes in here that are so beautiful and hilarious, but I couldn't imagine them being in a SpongeBob episode beforehand. Not because of the adult parallels, but due to exactly how it embraces and channels the 60s. You may not like this one as much as me, but hey, it's all relative. Number 3, The Legend of Boo-Kini Bottom. We're back on All Hallows Eve, and back in screen novelty stop motion for this one, and I have to say, it's even better than their first special. There's a lot going on with the art style here. In the backgrounds, foregrounds, mixture of stop motion and live action and different art styles. Gosh, just talking about it makes me want to go back again and watch it.
20 minutes later.
So about that story, it starts out cute and charming, befitting of the visuals. Patrick convinces SpongeBob that horror can be humorous, but that causes problems for the Flying Dutchman. My guy in green is finally back again, so I won't spoil the turn of events, as it'd be just as fun for you to watch unfold as it was for me. Somehow we end up here. All I can really say is...
20 minutes later.
Number 2, Shopping List. This one's just really enjoyable. SpongeBob's sent off to find random patty ingredients by Mr. Krabs, and he and Sandy travel the seas, successfully obtaining them, while Plankton follows and fails. It's basic enough to work as its own formula, and just going to 3 locations keeps it from being too cluttered. The characters are particularly strong here. Sandy's the heroine, SpongeBob's the helper, Plankton's the villain, Dutchie's back, and Mr. Krabs is the instigator of this plot. I feel like I'm more tolerant of him being used for plot twists than others because it's a symptom of him being a generally greedy character, and he gets his keys to handed to him in the end well enough. What I'm getting at is that Season 11 pretty much nailed adventure stories, and that's especially notable with my favourite of the bunch, number 1, Karins Virus. What's better than the show dipping its toes into a cyberspace setting for the first time? Doing it in CGI! Granted, not everything in Karen's sick head is computer generated, but what we get is beautifully stylized. All the locations SpongeBob and Karen's interpretation of Plankton go to are wonderfully creative, from wireframe trampolines to gigantic circuit boards to a memory bank with actual series memories. The plot itself takes a back seat to the visuals, but it's equally awesome, with the outside world offering enough comic relief with Karen's silly meltdown, and the digital world giving us one of SpongeBob's most threatening villains to not be color-coded green. It has beautiful animation, a beautiful story, and beautiful eye. To put it bluntly, what better way to cap off my last consecutive SpongeBob list? I've had so much fun going back through my favourite show across these past couple months, and I've enjoyed so much more about my favourite episodes. I'll be sure to learn more as the years go on, but for now, I think it's fair to say I need a break from SpongeBob and need to kick back with something more puffy and powerful. I'm forever grateful to Stephen Hillenburg for creating such an awesome show and character, Tom Kenny for giving it a voice, all the writers and animators for bringing it into motion for 2 decades, and SpongeBob himself for making every day the best day ever for millions. Happy 20th anniversary, dude.